This conference will now be recorded.
Thank you, Andrew and Fred. Welcome everyone to the April 13th council meeting for the town of Mono. In advance, I'd like to ask anybody who has their microphones on, if you could put yourself on mute until such time as you are required to speak. Otherwise, we get a lot of feedback, so it's helpful when we're trying to listen to each other. This meeting is being conducted by means of electronic participation as permitted by Section 238, 3.1 of the Municipal Act 2001 as amended, and the Town of Mono Procedure Bylaw 2020-42. Council Chambers is not open to the public at this time. This meeting can be viewed by public participation by logging into the meeting. It is being recorded and will be uploaded for viewing within the next 48 hours, I believe. At this time, I'd like to confirm that there is quorum of council, and I call this meeting to order. Disclosure of pecuniary interest could be made now or at any time throughout the meeting. And at this time, I'd like to read the Indigenous Land Acknowledgement. We'd like to begin by respectfully acknowledging that the town of Mono resides within the traditional territory and ancestral lands of the Tionontati, Atawandaron, Haudenosaunee, and Anishinaabe peoples. We also acknowledge that the town of Mono resides within the treaty lands named under Treaty 18, the Nottawasaga Purchase of 1818. These traditional territories upon which we live and learn are steeped in rich Indigenous history and traditions. It is with this statement that we declare to honor and respect the past and present connection of Indigenous peoples with this land, its waterways, and resources. So at this time, I'd like to ask for council to approve the agenda as circulated. So we have a motion that the council approves the agenda of session 8-2021 as circulated. Moved by Martin and seconded by Nix. Is there any additions, deletions, concerns? Seeing none, then I'll call for the vote. Is anyone opposed to the motion? Seeing none, I'll deem that as carried. The next motion is that council approves the minutes of session 6-2021 and 7-2021 as circulated. Could I have a mover? Moved by Magdalo and seconded by Creelman. Is there any discussion on those minutes? Seeing none, then I'll call for the vote. Is anyone opposed? Seeing none, that's carried. And there is no proclamations at this time. Public question period. Mr. Simpson, was there any public questions submitted by the public?
We received 2 questions in advance for this evening, Your Worship. The first by Mr. Parker asks if the town has the resources to assist with the removal of the invasive and noxious species of plants such as buckthorn.
Okay. And so I know that we've been working diligently on many of the other invasive species. Mr. Dunmore, do you have any comments on this question?
I'm assuming that this is private lands, and I'm not quite sure. I know, and Fred Nick would be able to help us on this. The Hockley property on 5 Side Road had a existence of some buckthorn, and I think he still has the scars on his arms from trying to remove it, but I'll let Fred talk about the removal.
Okay, Councillor Nix.
I have to find my unmute button. I think I did it.
You did?
Two things. Yeah, there is a lot of buckthorn on the Hockley property. No, I haven't tried to remove any of it yet, Mike. I do sit on a committee of the Caledon Hills Bruce Trail Club that is actively pursuing 3 invasive species, one of them being buckthorn. but they are only doing this on properties that either they own or on private properties where the Bruce Trail runs through. But they have some expertise. I'd be quite willing. I mean, I think the answer to the person who asked the question is the town itself doesn't have any resources to do this. But I mean, I can certainly. I was going to say give advice. It may not be, but buckthorn is really difficult to control. You have to work at it, or the best way is actually to hire a licensed sprayer and make a cut in the tree and then put Roundup on top of it. I can't do that. We're not licensed, but I can certainly talk to this person
Okay,
if that would help.
so Mr. Simpson, do we have contact information to Mr. Parker?
Yes, I do, and I can put Councillor Nix in touch with him.
Okay,
I'll
well,
do that.
if you would take that on, Fred, it would be appreciated.
I'll do that.
Okay, thank you. And so now the next question, Mr. Simpson?
So the next question is from Jorn and Monica Heber, and they asked if council will consider supporting lowering of the speed limits on both the third line and on Hockley Road to a speed of 60 kilometers per hour. And they're interested specifically in that stretch of the third line from Highway 9 north to Hockley Road.
Okay, thank you. Any comments from council members on this item? Yes, Fred?
Yeah, I know this is going to be perceived as negative, but I personally don't think lowering the speed limit to 60 would change anything. The responsible driver is going to obey the speed limit, whether it's at 60 or 70. That road is safe to handle. Those roads are safe to handle that speed. The people that go past my house on the Hockley Road this past weekend was a zoo. We had motorcycles. I'm sure they were doing in excess of 120 kilometers an hour. The speed limit is 70. If you lowered it to 60, do you think they'd slow down? No, they wouldn't. Enforcement is the answer, and as John Creelman knows, that's difficult. The OPP cannot chase a motorcycle on the Hockley Road. I'm not sure about the third line, but they can't chase a motorcycle on the Hockley Road. And we have hundreds of them on the weekend going by there. I mean, with all due respect to Jordan and Monica, I appreciate the problem. I'm just trying to tactfully suggest that the lowering of the speed limit by and of itself won't really change those drivers that want to speed.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Mayor, as a member of the Police Services Board for the town, do you have any comments on this particular request?
Well, this is a straight stretch of road with pretty good visibility. And I'm inclined to agree with Fred that unlike other situations where curves and blind areas are predominant, this is a scenario where I think enforcement is something we would do first. So I'm happy to take this to the new detachment commander and the Police Services Board and add this stretch of road to the ever-growing list of problem areas in the town. And this may be a good opportunity to mention that we still haven't heard back from the Minister of Transportation on our letter with regard to increasing fines for speeding and the possibility of allowing us to use automated speed enforcement. So I think it's a combination of all those approaches before we look at reducing the speed limit.
Okay, thank you. I know that over this last couple of weeks, the enforcement definitely has been a presence everywhere, traveling the roads. So it is really good to see that our detachment is doing their best to get out there and do what they can to slow people down. So thank you, John. If you would take that further, that would be great. And so at this time, yeah.
Could we let the Hebers know that we're going to communicate with the OPP detachment on this as an enforcement issue?
Yes, we will.
Thank
Thank you. So Fred Simpson, if you can put that on our list to do. And so at this time, we do have a delegation that's to start at 7:15. It's a public meeting regarding filming permit application. Would council be willing to start now as the participants are in attendance? With that, okay. So the motion is that we adjourn the regular meeting of council and go into a public meeting to discuss a filming permit application at Cardinal Woods Phase 2. Could I have a mover? Moved by Martin and seconded by Nix. Any discussion? Anyone opposed? So that's carried. So we are now in public meeting regarding that permit. And we do have Paul Franklin in attendance and would like to walk us through the application that's before us. Welcome, Paul.
Hi there. Thank you very much, Mayor Ryan. I appreciate your invitation and the opportunity to speak to everyone here. I represent a TV show called Overlord in the Underwoods, and it's put out by Marble Media out of Toronto. It's a brand new television series. It's a family series that is about an alien who is in a intergalactic witness protection program and is hiding out in the attic of a suburban home. So it's a fun, funny story. And we hope to that it'll be very successful on Nickelodeon. We have some great showrunners, some great writers, and a great crew ready to go. So we were looking around this area for a few reasons. One of them includes there's a regional bonus for our for productions that film outside the GTA, and that's what brought us into this area. I was doing the original scouting and took some photographs of homes in and around Orangeville and Mono, and our creative team really liked Riverside Drive. So we've been speaking to some homeowners on Riverside Drive, particularly number 24, the Maurices. Our creative team really loved that to be our hero location, the Underwoods house. It would just be the exterior scenes of the Underwoods house. We would build the inside of the house in our studio in Kleinburg. So film all of our interior scenes there in our studio, and then whenever we want to peer outside, we would come, hopefully come to Mono and film on Riverside Drive. So our first block, we have 20 episodes that we would film over 5 blocks, and that constitutes a season for us. And our season starts this week in our studio, and then continues right through until July. So we would have these 5 blocks over the course of that time. So we don't always have we don't have the entire schedule set. We go 1 block at a time. So when I originally proposed this initial filming block, it would just be for the first 14 days of our filming, which goes until May 6th. And of that, 2 of those days, we would very much like to film in Mono, May 5th and May 6th. And there are 5 sets over the 2 days that we would like to film at 5 different locations within the town that we'd like to film at. And then since I have submitted this, we have proposed a new schedule for the second block, which would incur a second day. So I just would like to put that up just for a note, and I'll get to this afterwards in your questions. But this would be for May 7th, the very following day. We would like to have 1 additional day for the second block. But before I get ahead of myself, May 5th and 6th are the 2 filming days for Block 1. The first set of May 5th, we'd like to start, if allowed, at the Vicky Bern Lakeside Trail. It's a beautiful, as you know, it's a beautiful trail, and we're interested in filming a scene where our alien, the Overlord, is chasing his neighbors and the kids he lives with through the trail. The scene starts in Orangeville, and we would have a little scene here. For this, we don't require anything to happen to the woods itself or anything like that. It's simply all on the trail. We're hoping that we would be allowed to park some of our technical vehicles in the north parking lot for a few hours, from about 7 a.m. to about 1 p.m. At the most. We don't expect to be that long, but we always like to add some extra time just in case. The filming itself, we're hoping to have just down in this blue area, and it would just be the kids and our alien chasing each other through this highlighted area. When we're actually filming, we're hoping that we can ask anyone who is using the trail, any public who is using the trail, if they wouldn't mind just stopping for between 1 to 3 minutes. Our scene doesn't take very long to actually film, and then we would encourage them to, continue. And that would just be just again while we're actually filming. We wouldn't block or close. We were not asking to block or close the trail or stop anyone from enjoying the trail at all. We're just hoping that when we're actually rolling camera for the safety of our crew and for the comfort of the public, if they could just hold just out of our shot. Once we would, so the parking itself, we have a couple of different areas for parking. Our parking is divided up into technical vehicles, crew vehicles, and what we call base camp parking. So base camp is where our hair, makeup, wardrobe, and cast trailers go. They're typically tractor trailers, about 5 or 6 of them. We've been talking with local private properties about possibly parking there. Most notably, we've been talking to the Compass Community Church about the possibility of parking in their lot while we're here. We've also been talking to a couple of malls just down the road, just down Highway 10, about possibly parking our trucks there, as well as our crew vehicles. And then we're hoping to park some of our technical vehicles, which would be cube vans, pickup trucks, just inside this parking lot. We wouldn't require to take up all of it, and certainly we understand that it is a busy and popular trail, and so we would definitely want to leave space for the public to come and enjoy the trail while we're there. And that would be for, again, about 5 to 6 hours. So before I go too far, I was just wondering if this would be a good time to stop and take any questions that we're hoping to do.
Okay. Any questions from council members? Not me. Not at this time. And any questions from senior staff? Okay, so I guess you're good to carry on, Paul.
Thank you. Our second set, and what we call our hero set, or our recurring set, would be 24 Riverside Drive. For this, we would be filming in the front and backyards, and we hope to park our technical vehicles either to the west or the east of the set. We may require to move them if, we turn around and we see some of our trucks in the shot, then we may require just to jostle them to the east and then jostle them to the west. So I highlighted these areas just as a possibility of where they might land. And we're also talking to neighbors about the possibility of renting their driveways for additional space just to lower the impact on the street. All of these vehicles, they would be, again, pickup trucks, panel vans, maybe some box trucks. There will be a portable toilet on a trailer and a generator truck, which was either the front of a tractor trailer, the front end of a tractor trailer, or a box truck itself. It is what they call a blimped Jenny. It is insulated for sound so that it can be close to our set and not be heard by the microphones. We would ideally want to film at set number 2 for approximately a day and a half. So on May 5th and then into May 6th. Our filming days are typically approximately 7 a.m. to no later than 8 p.m. We have children in our set, so that really limits us. I'm happy that it limits us in the amount of hours that we can spend on set, and also all of our scenes so far that I've read have been are in daylight, so that's also nice. We don't require any night lighting. Oh, I'm sorry, sir. Go ahead.
What happens if it rains?
That's a great question. Right now, they typically if there is a concern for rain, they would provide us weather cover dates. From what I understand, on these dates, we will be filming rain or shine. They're okay with having. They don't want rain, but they will be okay with having rain for these scenes. But sometimes in incredibly inclement weather, we would be certainly asking to find a different date to do these scenes. A part of our scene would anytime that we're filming out on the street for safety for the cast and crew and public, as well as for sound and continuity of our scene. We often engage police to help, paid duty police officers to help us with intermittent traffic control. And we'd like for these 2 sets to be on Riverside Drive, intermittent traffic stoppages on Riverside Drive and on Willow Crescent. We're asking, typically we're allowed no longer than 3 minutes at a time, so we're very used to doing about 3 minutes. And I noticed by your policies that very generous in 5 minutes, but we certainly don't see us doing that very often. These are short scenes, and so we would certainly want to push people, allow people to go through their day without being delayed too much by us. The whole point for me is being able to establish a really good relationship with the community, because we do want to return, and we're hoping that we would get renewed for additional seasons. And so that could provide an opportunity for us to work with the community and have a lasting relationship. So we want to make sure that, especially the first season and first episode, that we're not we're trying people's patience. After we're finished the scenes at set number 2, we would move over to set number 3, which is right next door at number 22 Riverside. We plan to do all filming in the front yard for part of our day. And then once that is complete, again, the parking would be similar, the traffic control points would be similar, and that would be on May 6th when we move to set number 3. And I just don't know if have any questions regarding that.
No, not seeing any.
Okay, moving on to also May 6th. Once we completed filming at number 22 Riverside, we would like to move down to Willow Crescent at number 24 and 26 Willow Crescent, where we have been speaking to the homeowners about filming in their back and front yards. We would like to move some of our technical vehicles onto Willow Crescent on the east side, particularly our generator and our craft service truck, which is our coffee truck, and then our bathrooms as well. Typically moves wherever we go. And then we would have two of our officers come over and help us with intermittent stoppages on Willow Crescent. And that would be for about, I'd put 12 to 8 p.m., but I don't see it being that long. I just want to be generous with time in case we do go over. The original application, the notification signage was going to limit ourselves to Leader Drive and at Hockley Road, but with the addition of the additional block 2 that I'd like to present to you as well. I've asked, block 2 does include another property on Riverside, which is 46, which is on the west side of Leader. So I've adjusted the signage to read, to not be specific, but just to say Riverside Drive and Willow Crescent, to expect minor delays. And we would put the signage, arrange it actually more like this, where we would have it right at Highway 10, Riverside, right at Leader Drive at Hockley, and right at Riverside and Hockley. And that would allow for the May 7th, which is when we're hoping to finish block 2. And again, we'd be going back to ideally we'd be going back to 24 Riverside Drive, parking the exact same way. And then we would have one more, the exact same traffic control points for Riverside Drive. And then the following set would be number 28, which is Molly's Bed and Breakfast, number 28 Riverside Drive, where we would film a quick scene in the front yard there, and then move down to 46 Riverside Drive to do a scene at the front and back yards of that for a few hours. Again, each set shouldn't be any more than 5 hours at the very most, with our entire day being 12 hours plus our lunch. So that, in a nutshell, is what we're hoping to accomplish over 3 days. I apologize for adding the additional day, but I just got it, and I just wanted to make sure it would be okay while we're talking. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay. Ralph?
Thank you, Paul. That's very fulsome. That's more information than I can assimilate, I think. But the one question I have is that part of your proposal includes the site alteration bylaw. Are you planning to bring Phil in for site alteration?
To bring Phil in?
Yes.
I'm sorry. I didn't.
Your presentation that we have received for the agenda includes an outline of the site alteration conditions. And it includes the bringing in a Phil. Is that something you're planning to do?
No, we don't. We're not planning on bringing in Phil.
You sound like you're surprised to hear this.
Yeah, I think I may have filled that in incorrectly. If that's a notch on the permit application, allow me to bring that up here.
That's fine. I accept your verbal.
Okay.
It's not possible.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Sharon?
I think that council probably knows that Mono has been involved with Marble Media a couple of times now. And I think Kim may agree with me that they certainly do an excellent job. By the time they've left, you have no idea they've been there. And I think that is something that we should keep in mind when other groups come too and ask, because of course we live in the best part of Ontario, so that means we will be having more. And the other thing, I would like to know how I get to be an extra.
Mark?
Just an answer to Councillor Mankdalow's questions. Page 2 and 3 of that application are standard conditions that would apply to any occupancy permit by Mike being issued. So that's why the fill bylaws in there. Those are just standard conditions on any application. So.
Okay. Fred?
Yeah, and Paul, I'd like to apologize in advance. When you do that shot on the Vicky Barron Trail, that's a 900-meter long trail, and 600 meters of that is a boardwalk. And since Kim is online and listening to me, she and I have been fighting over that for 7 or 8 years. She wanted to replace that boardwalk at a cost of about $60,000, and I'm the cheap one on council. I said, no, it'll last a few more years. So when your crew is walking over that boardwalk, you may notice it is rather bumpy. Tell them to be careful. There's one spot on the east side, there's a kick rail, and you'll notice it's been repaired because someone, without naming any names, went around that corner on a bicycle on a rainy day and flew off the bicycle and went right through the kick rail and broke it. Anyway, just tell your crew to be careful on that boardwalk, and I apologize for its condition.
Thank you very much. No apologies necessary. Actually, on these, it's a beautiful trail, and on these scenes, it'll be actually west of where the boardwalk ends, right at that intersection. So we won't be actually on it, but we will see a part of it in one of our shots. And to answer Sharon's question, I'm happy to provide you our background casting person's information. I know that they're always looking for people going forward for the season.
Hey, Paul, one of our residents did write and was questioning the opportunity being asked for when we're in a provincial lockdown for COVID. Would you be able to respond as to what kind of precautions are required for your company to operate, and how this, if the lockdown goes beyond the dates that you're requesting, is this normal practice for the province to allow this kind of activity to happen?
Thank you. Yes. At the beginning of all of this, we were shut down from the entire industry was shut down from March until July, and since then we have worked diligently with the Ontario government and local municipalities to create and adhere to Section 21 guidelines from the Ontario government, which allows us to be exempt so far from all of these shutdowns. There are very strict protocols and guidelines, which includes rigorous testing. I was just tested today, for example. We have all of our crew and cast are tested on different basis depending on how close they work with the cast. And then we have strict PPE guidelines. We have what everything is. We have our own COVID specialists. We have constant cleaning and just basically adhering to the provincial guidelines. And that has allowed us to move forward even in the various degrees of shutdowns that we've experienced. So we're happy to say that we're continuing, and right now, as long as we keep adhering to these guidelines, that we'll be able to continue. Certain things have fluctuated. For example, the amount of people who are allowed on set at any one time has fluctuated. Sometimes cast members have gone down with background down to 10, and I believe it's back up now to 50 of a cast and background on any set. But again, they're all stringently tested. So yeah, it's been a very complex, of course, expensive ordeal, but we're just so pleased that that the government has allowed us to work with them to kind of come up with these solutions that we can continue to work.
That's good. That's nice to hear and very reassuring because, of course, we all want to make sure that we do our activities, etc., in safe protocols. I know that most of the members of staff and council are in process of getting vaccinated, which is exciting.
Yeah.
So all of those things put together, it's nice to know that we can continue to go forward. Is there any other questions of Paul of his presentation? Yes, Kim?
Um, just a couple of comments, and that's one that when Marble Media was out at Menorah, prior to coming out there, they did send me their COVID safety plan, and I have to tell you, it was very extensive and well written, and I was very, very pleased with everything that they had on it. They went over and above the rules that are set out by our government, and I didn't have any concerns. So I just wanted to, Your Worship, let you know about that I have seen a copy of their safety plan, and I'm very pleased with it. The other thing is just getting back to the filming on the Vicky Barron Trail, which is our Island Lake access trail up to the Vicky Barron Trail. I did hear from the CBC today that they had a question from a resident. They saw, I guess, I'm assuming that it was part of Marble Media out doing some measuring out on the trail. And this resident was concerned that you were a developer and we were selling the land. And so CBC contacted me to see if I knew anything about it. And I suggested that I did think that perhaps this was related to the possible filming. My question is, in the parking lot, it is a very limited parking lot out there, and I think you've probably realized that our trails are extremely busy. When you say some vehicles will be parked in the parking lot, are you talking about 2 vehicles? Or are you talking about 10 vehicles? Because 10 will take up the whole parking lot.
Yes. Film crews, you'll find, are a lot like goldfish. We will grow to the size of our bowls. So if you give us a limitation, we will certainly act within it. We will always ask for as much space as we're allowed. But ideally, we for those 5 hours, we'd like to leave, space for maybe 5 or 6 public vehicles, if that could be okay, and then fill the rest up with our technical vehicles for that time.
I just needed to know. It's, I mean, totally up to council, but I thought we should know what some vehicles were. And are you planning on putting any signage out at the trailhead to let people know that filming will be going on?
We hadn't planned to do advanced signage. However, I'm happy to do it if required. We will, and we always do, put up signage when we're filming that we are indeed filming, so that when people approach the trail, they will, on all 3 sides, know that filming is up ahead.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions of council members? Seeing none then. Okay, yes, John?
Paul, just curious whether the inspiration for this is the very well known by a certain generation TV series, My Favorite Martian.
That I'm not sure. I was speaking to the writers earlier today, and they were actually just more surprised than anything that they're able to do this. They just had a lot of fun coming up with this concept, and they're just kind of over the moon that they're there now, ready to shoot it. So I don't know where the inspiration came from exactly, but let me just put it this way. Overlord is not nearly as nice as Marvin, as the Martian. Sorry, as My Favorite Martian. He's kind of a jerk, but through all of that, he brings the family closer together.
Thank you.
All right then. So if there's nothing further, thank you very much, Paul, for your presentation. And if there's no other comments from public that's in attendance, I don't see anybody requesting comments, so then what we'll do is we'll close off the public meeting and then address the request as we go back into our regular council meeting. So the motion is that we close the public meeting and resume the regular meeting of council. Could I have a mover? Moved by Nix and seconded by Mantelo. Is there any questions or anybody this time? Okay, looking for the vote. Is anybody opposed? Seeing none, that's carried.
Thank you all very much.
Okay, so we have a motion that council approves the issuance of a permit to Marble Media OU Productions 1 Inc. to film at various locations during May 2021, subject to the conditions detailed in a filming permit issued by the town. Could I have a mover? Moved by Martin and seconded by Nix. Any discussion? Seeing none then, I'll call for the vote. Is anyone opposed? Seeing none, that's carried.
Thank you all. Thank you all
Good
very
luck.
much.
Good luck with your filming, Paul.
Thank you, and feel free to contact me anytime. I'm happy to go over anything that you see
Okay, great.
while we're there.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we will continue on with our agenda. Item section 5, the list of unfinished and deferred council business. Is there anything that needs to be added, deleted, or modified? Yes, John?
I'm just wondering whether we can put some dates to the item having to do with procurement policy for professional services. I realize this is a complex matter, but it would be nice if we have some expected due dates in there as targets.
Okay, Mark?
We can certainly put some dates in. We've certainly, I mean, at this point in time, we're looking at some of our services. I don't want to get into it in open council. And I think once we've had those discussions, we could flesh out more as to where we're going.
Okay. Is that all right, John?
Yes, I'm fine with that, as long as we don't lose sight of the issue of addressing the services.
Okay. All right, so if there's nothing further on this item, we'll carry on to item number 2, the drinking water systems users information sheet. Any questions, comments? Ralph?
I'm very pleased to see this. Obviously, there's a lot of work that's gone into it, and I think it's exactly the kind of thing that we need to be putting out there. I don't think it's appropriate in council, but there's a couple things that we could do that would just make it a little bit clearer, and a couple red flags as well. If I would be allowed to make suggestions, I'd be pleased to.
Okay, and what state is this overview, Mike? Has it gone to print, or what is the status?
So it was provided to council a couple weeks ago, and it was our opinion that the comments had been received and implemented. It has not gone to print. It was just provided tonight as a courtesy. However, I am open to discussion prior to print.
Okay, so maybe Ralph, what you could do is provide Mike with your comments further, so that we can get this circulated.
I'd be pleased to do that in the next day or so. Thank you.
Okay, John.
2 questions. I take it this will have a web presence that basically reflects the paper version?
So we'll have this on the web, and I'm working with Andrew on a larger sheet to frequently asked questions as well, with a little bit more detail. And Andrew actually has a draft web page in the background that I have yet to review, but it'll incorporate this and as a minimum.
And the second point is I've sent in my comments about improvements to the existing website that deals with drinking water and wastewater matters. So I hope some changes can be made.
So John, yes, we received those to the deputy mayor. There is a wastewater treatment page as well in the background, and we've cleaned up some of the emergency contact information. We're trying to separate public works specific and then funnel down through the roads and bridges, wastewater, and water departments that way. And Andrew, like I said, has a draft document behind the scenes, and I'm just trying to find the time to review it with him.
That's great. I was particularly concerned with reference made to accessibility to certain items at the at town hall, as opposed to being linked to the website. Obviously, people's ability to visit town hall to scrutinize documents is somewhat limited now.
So that was in reference to the drinking water quality management system. I'm working with Orangeville right now, as it is it's our document and their document as well, to update with staffing changes and so forth. It's a 130-page document that I'm trying to extract the emergency contact information out right now. It's all personal home phone numbers, and I'm working towards that and looking at and hoping to include that as part of the updated Waterworks webpage portion.
Okay. All right then. So if there's nothing further on that, we'll carry on with item 3, the OPP Detachment Board Framework and the draft letter to the Solicitor General. And any comments from council on the draft letter? Yes, Fred?
I thought it was a very good letter. I agree with it totally. And John, I assume you wrote it. Job well done.
Thank you. Your Worship, if I could just say a few things about the content of the letter. This was very much an exercise in trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. The objective all along was to try and preserve our representation on any police service board model going forward. And the province seems determined to have these detachment boards and reduce the number of boards overall. So with a lot of background, we have two options here. One is the status quo, which I think can be argued from the standpoint of the assumption of OPP services by both Shelburne and Orangeville. However, if we are forced into a new model, the way that I think it can work is the 3-board model, with Orangeville and Shelburne going together, Amaranth, Grand Valley, and East Garifraxa being a board, and Mono, Mulmer, and Melanchthon being a board. And I try and explain the rationale there for that. And both the rural boards have urban components, and Orangeville and Shelburne obviously have very similar policing issues and objectives. So I think this is doable. I just don't know what the status of the process is. The warden was going to convene a meeting of mayors to talk about coming up, hopefully, with a joint position. I haven't heard any more as to whether or not that's happening.
There is a meeting that's being scheduled for early next week. Just waiting for confirmation as to what day and time. And if this draft letter is approved by council to be forwarded out, I would certainly take this letter forward to that group and make sure our position is clear.
That would be terrific. I think the thing that we have to be very wary of is the rural municipalities having to share representation on a future detachment board. I mean, we pay over $1 million in costs annually, and the notion that we would have to share our representation on a police service board is very troubling to me. The models presented here ensure that we have one council representative, one council appointee, and the province, of course, is free to do what it wishes. And I guess the disappointing thing to me is that the province still insists on appointing people when they can't even fill the positions they currently have. The Melanchthon vacancy has been that way for 3 years, and 12% of the positions province-wide are currently vacant. So I think these boards would work really well with local appointees and representatives of council. But if the province insists on matching the local appointees, so be it.
Okay, yes, Sharon?
I very much support this this letter that John has written. I think it outlines, if I'd been thinking about it for a long time, outlines what I would like to see, that we are still represented. But I have to tell you, we had occasion to have an OPP officer come down our driveway, and I said to him, "Are you mono?" And he said, "We're Deferred." So to me, that meant that it's all one thing. And perhaps this officer feels it's all one thing.
Yeah. Ralph, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Yes, I think the concepts in this letter are good. I think the fallback position to 3 boards is quite rational and would still give us input, which I think is important. John's made that point that each municipality should have some representation, and I strongly support that. So my understanding is that this letter would then be circulated likely to all the municipalities. Is that the thinking, Mayor Ryan or Deputy Mayor Freeman? I'm interested in how it's going to go forward. I know there's a meeting coming up. But.
Yeah, so I would think it would be prudent to copy our Dufferin municipalities and the detachment so that they are made aware of our position. And I can certainly let everyone know what happens at the meeting next week. Is any movement forward?
Sounds good.
Okay. So as long as everybody, yes, Mark.
Just while you're on the topic, and just a reminder, the Solicitor General's office is doing what they call, I guess, a workshop or virtual information sessions on April 20th and May 4th. I've sent you the information for that, for the sign up, and they have confirmed that we're not limited to just one person. So if you feel like you wish to do one of those virtual open houses, I've sent that information out. Let me know if you need me to send it to you again.
Okay, thank you. I know I'm not available on the 20th, so I'd have to choose the May date. I don't know about you, John, if you were thinking of logging into that.
I'm going to have a look at both dates, but I'll pick one for sure.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So then we will sign this and get this out, and then we'll see what happens. Okay, so on to bylaws, correspondence, and new business. And the first one is the 10 and 10 Garden Center Site Plan Agreement Exemption Request. We have that information that's been submitted from Ainley Consulting Engineers. And I understand that Marie LaRue is here online. Thank you very much, Marie, for attending. Now, David, would you like to start us off with this?
Sure. Thank you, Mayor Ryan. This is a request on behalf of the owner, Jasper Cooner, at 10 and 10 Garden Center, to have council consider exemption under site plan control for an amending provision, if you will, to his existing agreement that back in 2017 allowed the 8 glass greenhouses to be constructed on his property or a portion of the property under the rural A16 zone. The nature of the exemption relates to shade structures, and these things are temporary. There's be 10 of them, however, I believe fastened together in a grid-like pattern to the south of these existing glass greenhouses on the property. I think with that, I'll just let Marie provide her outline to council, if that's fine, if she's there.
Okay.
Good evening, Your Worship, members of council. I am Marie LaRue. I'm a senior planner with the Ainley Group. And on behalf of our client, Jasper Cooner, who owns the 10 and 10 Garden Center, we were happy to provide council with an outline of what he's proposing and to request your exemption for site plan approval. The proposal is to establish a temporary shade structure. It is made of galvanized frame, and it is will be approximately 100 feet by 100 feet or 30 meters by 30 meters. So presently there's the existing greenhouse on the site, which is 1,684 square meters. And it's very full and busy right now with growing the plants. And at the south end of the existing greenhouses is where they do have some retail. So the proposed shade structure is very similar to what you would see in the garden centers on the parking lot of your grocery stores. And so it is just the frame structure, and it is just like a cloth mesh on top. And what it does is it provides shade for the plants. And so that they would be able to retail the seasonal plants from there for a period of approximately 3 months. It would allow for a nicer location for the customers to be able to come in, view the plants, and also as well maintain the COVID separation distance. And so it is an accessory temporary use to the existing greenhouse. And so whenever it's because the site's already established, it's not going to be in the parking lot. It is just going to be in a gravel or a dirt area just south of the greenhouse. And so it's not going to affect any of the entrance, the existing parking, drainage, the lighting, the landscaping. That is all going to be maintained the same as it was approved. And so with site plan approval, if there isn't any need for any additional site development, then that's when council can consider giving an exemption for the site plan approval. And so with what's proposed, we do feel that it's minor and that it's much needed to provide the retail space. It's temporary, it's accessory, and we would just respectfully request council's consideration to exempt it so that then Mr. Cooner could go ahead and get his building permit from the county of Simcoe to hopefully get it up and ready for the spring opening.
Thank you. Any questions from council members? Councillor Nix?
Yeah, I have no problems with this. The one thing, and I will admit, I read through the application very quickly. I had trouble reading the diagrams because my eyesight isn't that good, but I know I've been to that place, so I know where the south end is. If this is granted for a temporary structure, does that mean that we've granted it from now until eternity? I mean, it would happen next year and the year after and the year after, right?
Yes, it
Is that
would.
how?
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. I have no problems with it. I wasn't clear on that.
Yeah. So the top mesh would only be there for just for those few months, and then it comes off. Yes.
Yeah, because I mean, I think last year they sold all the plants they were selling. They had to put them on the east side of the building, sort of along the sidewalks. And what my assumption is now they'll all be under this shaded structure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions from council? Seeing none, then we have a motion to consider. The council has no objection to the construction of a temporary portable shade structure as illustrated in the report prepared by Ainley Consulting Engineers dated March 31st, 2021, to temporarily house seasonal plants and to permit their retail sale for a period of approximately 3 months for 10 and 10 Garden Center at 634026 Highway 10, and that a site plan agreement for this construction is not required. Could I have a mover? Moved by Nix and seconded by Creelman. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Is anyone opposed? And seeing none, that's carried.
Thank you, Your Worship, and members of council, and Mr. Trotman for your help.
Okay, thank you, and thank you for attending, Marie.
You're welcome.
Okay, so now we're on to item 2, 508216 Highway 89 Site Plan Agreement Exemption Request. And so, David, do you want to start us off with this?
Thank you, Mayor Ryan. So this is a request from the Schaus Land Cattle Company operation at the southeast corner of the 5th line, and of course, by the south side of Highway 89 in Mono. And the owner, represented by Ken Schaus, wants to add a building for office use directly related to the operation. So obviously they have staff there on site, and I guess they need a bit more space for that purpose, but also related freezer and storage capacity. There was, I cited on my report some attachments that they've provided, including an email from OMA, from the Ministry of Agricultural and Rural Affairs. And then I've also, of course, cited a resolution and in reference to a previous exemption to the Schaus Farms back in July 2007, just for some context and history. But with that, I will turn it to Mr. Ron Davidson, who's the plan consultant acting on behalf of Schaus Farms.
Okay. Is there any questions of council to either David or Mr. Davidson? Yes, John?
Yes, I'm just curious what the freezer capacity is for. Is there thought of doing retail sales, or it's not very clear what the purpose of the freezer capacity would be? Presumably the cattle are still raised there and go off to slaughter elsewhere. Can somebody fill me in on that?
Okay, Mr. Davidson, would you like to respond to that question? Your mic isn't working. No, it's not coming through. Andrew or Fred Simpson, do you have any suggestions how Mr. Davidson can activate?
In the past, we've asked people to sign off and sign back in, but I'm just wondering if it's possible, if this might be easier. Mr. Davidson, are you able to just type into the chat and we'll read that out?
But he's
Or
gonna try calling in.
looks like it.
No. Would you like to sign off and sign back in again and see if you can activate that way? And we'll just hold for a minute. No, it didn't work. Fred Simpson, is there a way that Mr. Davidson can call in?
Yeah, there is. Andrew, do you want to post the phone number into the chat? Or read it out even?
Just give me 1 minute.
Maybe we need to hire Marvel Media as a production company, Your Worship.
The phone number is 647-497-9373. I'll put that in the chat for you there, Ron. And you'll need the access code as well, and I'll send that to you too.
And well, that's also available in the participant list, but might as well
Yes.
put it in the chat as well.
And I'm going to
Your-
send him an email as well to confirm that number, right? 647-497-9373. I think I've got that correct.
That's correct, yes.
Thanks.
Mr. Davidson, did you get the phone number? Or are you going to try to go by handset? Just a regular phone will work.
Access code.
Okay, are you ready? I can read it out to you if you're ready to copy. Was that a thumbs up or a wait?
No, that's
Okay,
a thumbs up.
the access code is 370-925-165.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to turn my computer off, I guess, so I don't have back feedback.
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay, folks, can you still hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm still trying to shut my computer off here. Okay, I'm very sorry about that. Will you believe me if I say it wasn't my fault?
It happens to the best of us.
Yeah, so I believe I recall the question, and it was about possible retail sales on the property. It's my understanding is that there will not be retail sales on the site at all. They'll be bringing beef back to freeze it for sales elsewhere, but people will not be coming to the property to buy meat.
Okay. So that answers your question, John. Is there anything else?
It does.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions regarding the presentation and the request? Seeing none from council, we do have a prepared motion. The council has no objection to the construction of an accessory building as illustrated in the report prepared by Ron Davidson, planning consultant, dated March 26, 2021, for the on-farm office related uses and freezer storage for Schaus Land and Cattle Company Limited at 508-216 Highway 89, and that a site plan agreement for this construction is not required. Could I have a mover? Moved by Mantolo and seconded by Nix. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Is anyone opposed? Hearing none, that motion is carried. Thank you very much, Mr. Davidson.
Thank you. Have a good night, folks.
Okay, so now we're on to fire safety grant transfer payment agreement. And there's a memo from Fred Simpson regarding the agreement requirements. And is there any questions of Fred's report? Seeing none, then we have a motion that we introduce and give the necessary readings to a bylaw authorizing the town of Mono to enter into a transfer payment agreement with the province of Ontario, substantially in the form as attached as Schedule A to the bylaw, to receive funds under the fire safety grant, and that it be signed by the mayor and the clerk for the town of Mono, sealed and engrossed in the bylaw book. Could I have a mover? Moved by Mantolo and seconded by Creelman. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Is anyone opposed? No one is opposed, so that motion carries. And item 4, the borrowing bylaw. So we have a draft borrowing bylaw that's been submitted by Mr. Luca. Les, did you have any comments on this?
No, I don't, Madam Worship. It's the same bylaw the council passes on an annual basis, and it's like the memo says, it's a requirement to support our line of credit with CIBC.
Okay, thank you. So we have a motion that we introduce and give the necessary readings to a bylaw to authorize the temporary borrowing of funds that it be signed by the mayor and the clerk for the town of Mono, sealed and engrossed in the bylaw book. Could I have a mover? Moved by Nix and seconded by Martin. Any questions regarding the motion on the floor? Seeing none, call for the vote. Is anyone opposed? Seeing none, that carries. Thank you,
Okay,
Les.
thank you. Thank you.
Okay, the MECP Cardinal Woods Drinking Water System Inspection Report. So Mr. Dunmore has provided us with the background. Is there any questions regarding the report that was submitted? Yes, Fred?
Yeah, I just wanted to say I phoned Martha Weaver at the Ministry of Environment, Conservation Authority and Parks and had a good talk with her. And I've also had a good talk with Mike about this report. And I do have some thoughts and comments, but it's my understanding we're going to be discussing the drinking water system at a meeting in a month or so, where we can maybe have a more fulsome discussion of this issue. So I'm going to not ask any questions or make any comments tonight, if that's okay.
Okay. So any questions of this report that Mike has provided us? Seeing none, we have a motion that council receives the 2020-2021 Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks Inspection Report for the Cardinal Woods Drinking Water System. Could I have a mover? Moved by Nix and seconded by Martin. Any discussion? Call for the vote. Is anyone opposed? Seeing none, that's carried. Item 6, fleet maintenance report. And Mike has provided us with his update. And Mike, did you have any further comments to your report?
None at this time, Your Worship, unless council would like to discuss the content of the report.
Okay. Any questions of Mike? Yes, Ralph?
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay. Mike, your recommendation, as I understand it, is to purchase the 2015 John Deere that's presently rented. And I'd like a little more information about financing. The alternative would be to replace the transmission with either a new or a rebuilt transmission, which would give us another more years on the present 2008. One of the comments you made is that there's some offsetting costs through the auction of the 2008 as well as the Champion 2009 or 1997. Roughly, what would your expectations be in terms of how much money we might get for those two vehicles?
I think there'd be an upper limit of probably 100,000. The 2008, that's for both. The 2008 is a good machine still. It's the uncertainties that I've identified with respect to the transmission rebuild that causes great concern for me. And the 97, save and except that the rear differential has a small issue with it. It's not a very expensive fix, and it's in great shape and would bring in some great prices. So I would think plus the purchase of this would be financed from the fleet reserve, which is in-house at this time, and that would be my answer to that.
Well, you said, I think you said 100,000 you might get for the 2008. Is that correct?
No, that would be joint. We usually bring in anywhere from 30 to 50 per machine, and the 2008 will be a different age of machine that goes to auction, and I don't really have any firm information on what we would receive on a grader with a transmission issue.
And is it correct that this John Deere, which has the tranny issue, is that's a known problem with this particular model?
With the 2008, it's becoming more and more aware in the industry, and that's why there's a lack of recommendation. There has been no recall to date on the transmission setup, and a new a new transmission is basically the same transmission with the unknowns that we retained here, and rebuilt is the same kit that's in it today. So so we're struggling. It's a very short memo for a very long couple of months and a lot of research, and I feel pretty confident that we're making the right decision here.
Well, Your Honor, my impression is that this is the right decision, that we should go ahead with the purchase at this time of the current rented John Deere.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions of Mike before we consider the motion? So seeing none, we have a motion that Director of Public Works current fleet requirements report dated March 31st, 2021, and that Council authorizes the Director of Public Works to enter into negotiations with Marcel Equipment for the purchase of a used 2015 John Deere 772 GP with an upset limit of $230,000. And Sharon, are you moving the motion? Okay, moved by Martin and seconded by Mantelo. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Is anyone opposed? That carries. Okay, thank you. Item 7, Public Works seasonal staff. And Mike, you have your report in front of us. Is there anything you wanted to add to that?
I think about the only thing I would like to add is the timing of the report. As council's aware, I lost 4 months last year. This was something that ideally would have liked to have had to council at budget time, and it was a request of council to report on the contract employees. I still stand in the same process where I stood in 2019, that I would like to see 2 full-time employees come in as a regular members of our team. And should council have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay, my question would be, Mike, it hasn't been identified as to what would happen within our current 2021 budget that I read.
So with my absence and this being predominantly a heavily weighted public work initiative, it is my understanding that the budget as it stands today would include and incorporate the cost of this employees. They were not removed from the 2021 budget, and they would be they built in through the multiple budget lines and pages that that my labor sections go to.
Okay, thank you. Fred?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions, Mike. First of all, even if it is accommodated in the 2021 budget, I would like to have more information on the cost. What does it cost to put 2 new full-time employees in Public Works? By cost, I mean wages, benefits, and anything else like tools or trucks that they need. I'd like to know that. You say we can meet it within the 2021 budget. I still, to be honest, Mike, am a bit leery. I mean, when we create another full-time position, that's more or less forever. What I'd like to also know, last year, what we said is, okay, no, hire contracts. So you took a couple of your seasonal workers and they got contracts for the summer. If that worked, what's wrong with continuing with that practice? I mean, and I asked that question in ignorance because I really don't know the difference in cost between the 2 scenarios. I guess the other comment I have, Mike, is this, and I know you want Public Works, you've got these work orders, you want to do a good job, and thank you for doing that. But I see the world through slightly different colored glasses. There's two types of public out there. that I meet. One, they want more service from the town. Oh, they want the gravel raked out of their ditch. They want the garbage looked after. They want the snow plowed differently. They want the roads graded. And the second, the person standing beside that person wants their taxes either stabled or lowered. So I always try to weigh this thing about the service we give the public. And I think we do a pretty darn good job, even though if you have a back order of some or backlog of some work orders. But I'm trying to, in my own mind, justify beefing up our public works service and what it would take from a budget perspective to do that. That's my dilemma. So I'm not actually, well, subject to what some other members of council have to say, I'm not sure I'm prepared to go ahead with this proposal tonight.
Okay. Any other comments from council members or questions? Yes, Ralph?
I think actually, Fred, you asked a question. I think you, oh, sorry, Miriam. Is my microphone on?
Yep.
Can you hear me? Okay,
Yep.
I think, Fred, you asked a question. Did you want an answer?
Well, at this point,
I'd like to see the numbers before I make a decision on this.
okay.
So I think if I can add to that, because I also am concerned about the numbers. I think and I've had some discussion with Mr. Dunmore today by email because of some concerns, and he's been very forthcoming with information. The monies to cover the cost of these two people, which Fred asked what they were, and I'd like to know that too. What's the actual cost of one workman, including all their benefits for a year? I understand that this is already within many budget items that's already passed by council, so I accept that. But I'd like to have you answer Fred's question. How much does it cost for one person and a full-time employee?
Well, I think that'd be definitely something that I'd be prepared to sit down with the treasurer. We'd look at what the undetermined cost is, the training requirements of new employees. I think it's definitely something that Les and I could sit down and talk about. I don't think this is time sensitive tonight, but it's definitely something that Les and I could put forward for council, a comparison with contract versus full-time permanent, and then I would be able to only estimate what the potential training requirements would be of a new employee versus a rollover of a seasonal or a highly qualified individual compared to somebody that would need multiple training. So I don't think that's well, it's not a unreasonable request, and I don't think unless the treasurer has a different opinion, I don't think that's an unreasonable request, and I think it's something that we could come back with.
Yeah, the only thing I could add to Mike's comments would be like pretty well confirm what he has said, that the two seasonals that we had budgeted in the 2020 budget was carried over into 2021. Those numbers were not deducted. The key difference between the contract seasonal employee and a full-time would be the health and dental package. Everything else would be the same.
Okay, so if it's the will of council, should we ask for a more detailed report come back to our next council meeting, assuming that the information is available, and we can discuss it further? Yes, Fred?
And just further to that, my original question, Mike, if we hire two full-time employees, does that mean that we need fewer seasonal employees come winter? Like, would these full-time employees take over some of the snow plowing?
Correct, and that would be worked into, from my 2019 report, we run roughly 10 full-time right now with 4 or 5 seasonal. and that would go from 12 full-time with
Okay.
with 2 or 3 seasonal. So the winter level of service is not the item at concern. It's the summer workload and vacation coverage and so forth. And I think council's well aware that our staff are very committed and don't take a lot of vacation during the winter, and it tends to be utilized during the summer months.
So when Les works out the number, we need the full cost of 2 new employees minus the decrease in what seasonal workers cost us. That would be the net cost of these 2 additions. Okay, those are the numbers I'd like to see, Mike, if it were less, if that's possible.
Okay. John?
I'm sorry, the document doesn't open on my iPad, so this may already be contained in your report, Mike, but I'd like to additionally see job descriptions for these individuals and how you plan to deploy them in the summer. And obviously, I think the winter months has already been dealt with, but it strikes me that you're going to have a lot of pressures going forward over the course of the summer and fall with regard to removal of the ash trees. And I don't know whether that's anticipated in this workload or not, but it would be helpful to know how you're going to address that, and if you're going to address it with these individuals.
Well, we definitely address the roadside, the road allowance ash trees. We're working with Mrs. Eaton right now with respect to the forests and so forth, but we'll definitely be addressing that, and that's a fair ask for sure. The utilization of these employees are not 100% delegated towards a specific task, more along the lines of an expansion of the existing tasks, and less utilization of outside contracting and requirements for that kind of work. So that'd be something that I could definitely, we can add a financial impact to my report, and I'll think of the wording when I write the report, but what Deputy Mayor has definitely asked.
Ralph?
I was very pessimistic with this when I first read it, but given the information that we've heard tonight, I think that I'm leaning very much in favor of supporting it. I think that your suggestion, Your Honor, of getting a financial description of the transactions that will be involved is where we should go, and we should deal with this at perhaps the next council or subsequent council meeting.
Okay. Okay, so with that, we will hold this over to another meeting that the information becomes available. So now we're on to Schedule A. And Ralph, would you like to start on Schedule A?
There are a number of good letters here, which I don't want to, which have your name on them, Your Honor. I don't think I want to pick anything out in particular, so I'll pass.
Okay. Sharon, do you have anything that you wanted to note? You're good? Fred, do you have anything that you want? No? John, do you have anything?
I see that our MP, Kyle Seebeck, is supporting the various internet initiatives. I'm wondering whether Sylvia Jones has responded similarly to the motions that we would have sent to her regarding these overtures by the internet companies.
Fred Simpson or Mark, do you have any record of anything being received back from Sylvia's office?
No, I've seen nothing from MPP Jones on any of the applications.
Okay.
I believe all we've received was an email to say thank you and keep us informed. But I will check through my emails from Lavinia and Sylvia.
Okay.
Maybe a gentle nudge towards writing the federal and provincial authorities in support.
Yeah, it's probably a good idea. So maybe Mark, if you are in touch with Lavinia, you could ask whether or not a letter is forthcoming from her office. So if there's nothing further on Schedule A, we have a motion that we accept Schedule A to this agenda. Could I have a mover? Moved by Martin and seconded by Nix. Any discussion? Anyone opposed? That carries. So now we're on to reports of members of council and staff projects. So we'll start with David. Are you there, David?
Ryan, thank you. Nothing really new to report. Ongoing projects of several, of course, ongoing. Some of which are up for agency comments and so forth. So no, really nothing more to report at this time for you. That's it for me.
Okay, thank you. Kim, do you have anything? Oh, does anybody have any questions of David? Seeing none. Kim, do you have anything to report?
Just a quick update on ash tree removal at Menora Park. It is going on, or it was until we got a further shutdown notice, but we've now come up with further stringent guidelines for COVID protocol, and hopefully we'll be starting back up again on Thursday and Friday of this week. Staff members, recreation staff member Dave Mikowski has been working closely with Ross Martin, who I can't give enough kudos to for the supervision that he has given out there, and for making sure that all safety guidelines are followed, and everything is going as it should be out there. I actually had Dave in my office this afternoon, and he was complimenting Ross on what an incredible job is going on out there. So 15-inch in diameter is the maximum that our volunteers are taking down, and there will still be others that will be left to the town to figure out how we want to do that. More than likely we'll have to go to a contractor and get some prices. But that is ongoing, and just been working on the agreements for the ICIP Community Culture Recreation Grant for the tennis courts, and yeah, lots happening as far as grants and things going right now.
Thank you. Any questions of Kim? Thanks, Kim. Les, do you have anything you'd like to report?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. More of an update. I had told council at the last meeting that we were beginning our financial audit. We had 2 field auditors come out to the office on 2 separate days. It was just one person. This happened before the current lockdown and stay-at-home order. It went very well. We put the one person in the front boardroom. We knew what files she wanted to look at. We had them ready for her. She pre-screened, had a mask, had a face shield, and basically spent the day there. If anything else was required during the day, we got an email and we just left it basically at the door for her, and she would get it herself. So that went really well. We're continuing on with the update with our development charges study. With the new legislation, we can update our charge. Mark, Mike, and Kim and myself, we have met with Watson's earlier this week. Unfortunately for Kim, she has some homework to do, but the plan is to come with a draft background study to council in the next 2 to 3 months for council's review and discussion before going to a public meeting. And that concludes my update.
Okay, thank you. Any questions of Les? Seeing none, thanks, Les.
Thank you.
On to you, Mike Dunmore.
So just to help council feel good about their filming approval tonight, since the third line filming that occurred a couple years ago, Public Works has been working on a filming policy. We have that in draft form now. I'm prepared to send that on to the directors and let Marble Media be our first test of this draft policy. Any concerns that we may have with it, we'll be sure to add in, and subject to the CAO's comments, we'll bring this up back to council, and we're thinking that we've got a fulsome permit for that matter. So that was worked on over the last, well, it was worked over the last couple of years, but finalized last week. And I'm preparing to bring the water budget in the next coming weeks. I'm finalizing some quotations with respect to the normal capital allotment that is inside of the water bill. We have some water tower items that I'd like to take care of this fall, which will include draining of the tower and doing some inside works with respect to the tower, some health and safety upgrades, and we're working with the town engineer right now on arsenic removal responses for council, and prepare to bring some reports back to council with that. I'm in preparation of the drinking water quality management meetings that are all coming up over the next couple months, and ensuring that our reports and everything are being adhered to per the ministry requirements with our operating authority. And as Les mentioned, the DC study, we're also working with Watson and Associates right now for our creation and finalization of our levels of service for our core assets, and with the help of our IT manager, Jake, him and I are trying to reconcile all the assets into core assets and apply all of our previous history expenditures towards them to hopefully come up with these good levels of service. We're working towards a process to be able to tell council in the next couple of years, hopefully, what it really costs to maintain a portion of road or a section of a wastewater treatment plant or a water section. So we're working towards that. 2024, I think, is the deadline. So we've been working on those items, and my full-time assistant has left for a year now, and we have a temporary assistant in for the course of a year. And so if you get a chance to give Michelle a call and introduce yourself, it's not the normal face-to-face, but definitely Michelle's been in the last week and busy getting her up to speed for the next year.
Okay, thank you. Any questions of Mike? Seeing none, well, thanks very much, Mike. Fred Simpson.
So Andrew has once again done a yeoman service on putting together our spring and summer newsletter, which you should see in your mailbox as early as perhaps the end of this week, if not the beginning of next week. Also, on a related or similar topic, we of course have the town hall meeting scheduled for May 6th. At the last time we discussed this at council, council had suggested a presentation from the Wellington Dufferin Guelph Public Health Unit. I'm just, I don't know, Councillor Manctolo, you had mentioned you might reach out to them. Is that something that you had an opportunity to do?
The person I wanted to reach out to just went on mat leave. So I need to rethink this. I'm not sure. Fred, I'll get back to you by tomorrow.
Okay. If I know I've I've talked to the director of health protection at the health unit, and he's indicated he'd be willing to come out on the town hall, virtually come out and give a presentation. If that works with you and the rest of council, I can formalize that invitation if you'd like.
What's his name?
Chris Beveridge.
Oh, Chris. Yeah, I think Chris would be a good choice. Yeah, I'd run with that. I'm quite happy with that.
Okay.
Do you pass it by?
Yeah,
If
no,
council's in agreement.
yeah, I think you should go ahead.
No, I didn't hear your response. Did you have a chance to discuss it with Chris?
I'm sorry, Councillor Manctillo, I didn't quite catch that.
I was wondering if you had discussed this possibility with Mr. Beveridge.
Yes, I've talked to him.
Yes, he already said.
Talked to him. Yeah, and without making a formal ask, and he is available.
Okay. Your Honor, my sound is sometimes breaking up, so that's the problem.
Yeah. So Fred Simpson will reach out to Chris and make a formal request, and so we should know imminently that would be on the agenda for that meeting. And what else?
Can I make a suggestion?
Yes.
Make a suggestion about that. I think we should give him some direction with respect to what we would like him to talk about and what the format is, and be quite specific. I don't know that whether people want to give input here or not, but it shouldn't be just an open to come and talk.
Okay, so maybe my suggestion would be then that once Fred has formally set the date and time with Chris, that you would contact him then, Ralph, on our behalf, and set up the format that you think would be best received by anybody who attends the meeting.
Yeah, I'd be pleased to work with Fred on that.
Okay. And who else did we have, Fred, for that meeting?
Well, it was left kind of open that perhaps we'd go down the route of gypsy moth, or perhaps just leave it at one subject. So I was kind of hoping to nail that down this evening.
Okay. What's everybody's take on that? Do you think that gypsy moth should be added, or do you just want to do the public health update and then open it up, the open floor up to questions from residents or participants? Yes, Ralph?
Well, my sense is that the when we had a to and fro between the residents and staff or council, that made for the best town hall meetings, and we should just probably go with the one presentation and try that plus a question and answer period.
Okay. Sharon?
Now, that's what I was going to say. Ralph, did you say something about staff as well? Did you say staff would be there as well as council?
I did say staff.
Okay. Yeah, no, I like that idea.
So specifically, who on staff do you want?
The people who would be most appropriate to answer the question.
Good answer.
Right.
Mike, Kim, Dave, Fred.
In other words, all the directors. So then I think we should defer to Mark as our CAO as to whether or not that is an option, or how do you feel about with their schedules?
I mean, staff are always available to appear at council meetings. Town hall meetings are a little different. I think they've generally been council oriented, not a staff function. I've always found that town hall meetings just become a grilling of staff, but if council wants us there, we can certainly be there. I've pretty much attended all of them except the first one. So
Okay. So what's the wish of council?
Oh.
Yes, Les?
Just want to confirm the date, Fred Simpson. You said May 6th.
Yes, at 7 p.m.
I'm not available.
Okay.
I didn't realize that staff was going to be brought up. Actually, that's my birthday, so I was hoping to celebrate that evening.
Well, we will celebrate on your behalf. So what's the
to availability will be there.
okay? Okay, well, we appreciate that. So so you've got your question answered then, Fred?
Yeah, I think that does it. I mean, we had talked about perhaps there would be very, very short other topics, like 1 to 2 minutes, that councillors might have of interest. I've put out the call on various channels that we have to residents that by all means submit your questions in advance. So if we end up using up another 10 minutes or less with 1 or 2 quick hits that are of interest at the time of council, I think that works just perfect along with the presentation and an open forum, and we see how we do.
Okay. All right then.
All right. So I also wanted to quickly mention we did receive a couple of complaints about dirt bikes running up and down the roads. I had informed the Police Services Board last week and Inspector Terry Ward, and both the OPP and Andrew have put together a social media campaign reminding people of the rules, because they are confusing with those changes that came into effect on January 1st. Mono's a bit of an outlier in comparison to many of the other lower tier municipalities in Dufferin. Even the OPP weren't completely sure how the rules worked until we sat down and discussed it. Nonetheless, Inspector Ward has indicated he'll be putting out additional patrols and looking for off-road vehicles, including dirt bikes, running rampant on mono roads.
Okay,
and that is all I have.
Okay, any questions of Fred? Okay, thank you, Fred. So now, Mark.
Just 2 quick things. First one's just for your information and following up on comments made earlier tonight. I did drive down to Orangeville this morning for my my vaccine, and I passed probably 8 police cars in 6 different locations on Highway 89 and 10 within an hour going back and forth. So they were really out in full force this morning. So, and the other matter, without getting into too many details on the bylaw enforcement matter, I can tell you that PAWS, the bylaw enforcement officer, and MECP will all be making visits to the property this week.
Okay, good news. Thank you. Any questions of Mark? Okay, seeing none. Thanks, Mark. So now, Fred, Nix, do you have anything to report?
Yeah, just a few things. We had a site meeting with the Bruce Trail people on the first line on Cannings Falls about they want to put a fence there. They've bought that property. And Mike, thanks for your help. In fact, Mike, I was talking to the Bruce Trail people afterwards, and they are very appreciative of the relationship they have with Public Works in the town of Mono, not just on that fencing issue, but the way your drivers in the winter, they clear a few delicate little spots on the side of the road in a few places where hikers park, and the Bruce Trail appreciates that. My second point was I too went into Orangeville last week and I got the needle. I didn't whimper at all, but my comment was going to be that I was really impressed by how Wellington, Dufferin, Guelph Public Health had the whole system organized. It went very, very smoothly. The people were very nice and the needle didn't hurt. The third thing was we had, we've marked the dead ash trees in some of our municipal forests. And I had a report from a person last week in the 1926 tract. Somebody went in and 2 of the trees we marked have been cut down. I think I know who the person is, and I think I know why. The only issue was that one of them he cut it and it was leaning, which is a dangerous way to leave a tree. I think Dave Mitkowski went back and took care of it. The fourth thing was I had another resident phone last week. We had a person with a gator in a trailer in the river. The trout are running. I phoned Chris Hibbert at the NVCA, and that I actually went and spoke to the person. I think that's been taken care of. The last issue I have, which is something Mark sent me, and Mark, if it's okay, I just want to give this is the whole source water protection issue. There was some the province defined certain threats. One of them was a water quantity threat, and our area is one of the few areas that has a water quantity threat. They determined that from a study, a tier 3, what they call a tier 3 study done way back in 2014. That's 7 years ago. And as a result of that, the 4 municipalities, Mono, Amaranth, Orangeville, and East Gary, had a series of meetings back in 2017. We hired a consultant under the county chaired the meetings, and we hired a consultant, BM Ross, who did a very good report on sort of the framework for how the 4 municipalities can manage this threat. And the key is, well, let me tell you what happened last week, what Mark sent me. They finally, I guess Credit Valley Conservation has written a draft agreement. I've given it a quick glance and I gave Mark some comments, but I'm going to go over it in more detail. This is very technical, but it is quite important. Essentially, unless I'm taking too much time, Your Worship, it goes like this. The 4 municipalities share data on water usage and development. When we hit certain triggers, like if water usage goes up by more than 5% over a 4-year period, or if the number of hectares developed land goes up by more than 5%, we have to have a meeting and decide whether we rerun that model. The model tells us whether the threat has increased or not, or where we are with that. It's not cheap. It's probably in the neighborhood of $100,000. So this agreement sets forth how the 4 municipalities agree that we redo the work and how we share the costs of doing that. So I'm going to go over that. The reason I'm doing this in a bit of depth, Mark, is I'm assuming this agreement is going to come back to council for ratification, right? So that's why I'm giving you a bit of background, council. That's where I'm at. I'm going to go over that agreement with a fine-tooth comb and give Mark my comments, and you'll probably see this in the next, I don't know, few weeks on your desk. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Sharon, do you have anything to report?
I just that I agree about how well organized the Wellington, Dufferin, Guelph Public Health was. It was everybody I spoke to, I had nothing but good things to say. So that's great, because when I listen to the news, I hear a lot of unhappy people south of us having problems in the big smoke down there. And we've also noticed the numbers of OPP officers, vehicles in the area, and I think that that's a wonderful thing for us to have such a presence. The other thing was I managed to be bitten by a tick and attended the urgent care clinic in Orangeville. I didn't go to Emerge, but my daughter-in-law last night ended up going to Emerge. So they're out there. And I think it might be a good idea for us to let people know this. It's pretty early, I think, for ticks to be there. And I'm really glad that we have a couple of possums on our property, and I'm hoping that they take care of the number of ticks. And that's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you. Ralph?
Your Honor, I have 2 issues to bring up. One is with respect to the board of Health meeting, which was last week on Wednesday, and an update on the following regarding. The Board of Health meeting was historic in one respect, and it's with respect to what's happening with COVID out there. One of the problems with COVID is numbers. We get bombarded with numbers. You know, how many people are infected, what the R value is, the case numbers, et cetera, the number of people in the ICUs, et cetera. But I'm going to give you some numbers here. And this is the numbers for the entire Wellington, Dufferin, and Guelph area, which is a little less than 300,000 people. And it's the case numbers per 100,000. 2 weeks ago, it was 40. That's the 7-day moving average. 1 week later, it was 108. Today, it's 154. So in the whole year of the pandemic, we've never seen a rise that's been as sharp a rise as this. And so we're into a real problem. And it seems that it's the variant that's driving it. In the testing that's been done, 60% of the tests are in the UK variant. So this is a really big problem. The question is what can you do? What can you as an individual do? And the answer really is just the same things as we've been doing before, but be more strict and more rigid. The number that the epidemiologists had played with respect to transmission was that if you're in an indoor space with a mask on and they had a 15-minute exposure to somebody with COVID, you had a pretty good chance of getting it. And now the number is 2 to 3 minutes, not 15 minutes. So it's much more transmissible. I think that, maybe correct me, Mark, if I'm mistaken, but you've started to wear masks within the town office, which I think is new, by all the employees unless they're enclosed in a space. So I think that's very appropriate. The problem, thanks, Fred. the problem really is enclosed spaces and transmission by aerosols. The other thing that you personally can do is up your quality of masks. And the obvious best quality is the N95 or the Chinese version, which is the K95. And these are available online now. We were told not to use them initially and save them for healthcare workers. And I personally had a stack of them in my workshop because I used them there for dust control. And I gave off, I think, 53 of them to the local hospital. But now you can get them and use them, and I use it all the time. Or you can double mask. So it's up to you how much protection you want. The other thing is an update on the vaccines. And their effectiveness against variants. It looks like all of the vaccines are effective against the UK variant. The South African, it looks like the Pfizer is pretty well 100% effective. That's nothing's 100%, but it's very good. Moderna is modest, and AstraZeneca, as you may know, in South Africa they stopped using it because it wasn't effective. We really don't have numbers on the Brazil variant, the so-called P1 yet. The second thing is a monopollinator garden. We've had an executive meeting in our AGM, and the people are quite, I wouldn't say excited, but very enthusiastic about going ahead with this year. And there are a number of new projects. The South Plot, which is the area that's immediately to the south of the main plot that we've developed the last 4 or 5 years, is undergoing a major development with wildflower planting, the development of a boomerang mound and planting, and a number of other initiatives. So I think it really looks quite good. It's also a really great time for us to get the message out there, because there are a lot of walkers now, as you know, and they often come through the pollinator garden, sometimes on their way to the other trail systems, but visiting it. So we will up our on-site educational program as well. We have through discussions between members of the management committee, including Sharon and Mike, and Yuda and myself, we come up with a protocol that looks like it's acceptable. I ran it past Mark, and this will be a more stringent protocol, which will involve mask wearing, even though we're outside on the site, and we'll be complying with the policy with respect to the screening procedure that's universal for the town. So all in all, we're looking forward to the pollinator garden having a good season, and I just want you to know that people are interested in seeing and working there. That's all you want.
Okay, thank you. John, do you have anything that you'd like to report?
Not specifically tonight. I do have 2 notices of motion, however.
Okay. So what I'd like to ask is Ralph had requested our next meeting that's scheduled for April 27th be rescheduled. And due to various other things that happen on that date, for me specifically, I was wondering whether April 28th in the morning at 9 would work for council members and staff.
Works for me.
I understand there is no delegations at this time. It's just standard business items. So can I hear, John, you're all right? Ralph, you're okay?
I'm okay.
And Fred, Sharon?
Yeah.
That's our usual, Your Worship, that's our usual department head meeting time, weekly, so we should all be okay.
Okay. And I think maybe direction to the clerk that if there is something that's not of an urgent nature that we can hold off to the next meeting in May, then that's should be accepted so that we're not dragging out the director's day for too long. So if that's the case. So April 28th at 9 a.m. then. Okay.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, everybody. Much appreciated.
It's the least we could do for you, Ralph. Okay, so now, yeah.
If I could make a request that we have a very quick update on our bylaw enforcement initiatives at that meeting.
Okay, and are you specifically asking to go in camera for that?
I guess it depends on what the content of the report would be.
Okay.
But I just don't want to see us go too long without getting some update, especially on the recent issues with regard to the fourth line.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll leave that to staff to make a determination on what's going to be required then to incorporate that into the agenda. So with that, John, you've got 2 notices of motion.
Yes, and I believe both have been previously circulated. One has to do with the proposed 413 highway. And essentially, I'm not going to read the entire thing, but it's the motion that Councillor Peters moved at Orangeville Council with some minor adjustments, and it passed at Orangeville Council. The second notice of motion has to do with the frequency of our regular council meetings, and I'm proposing that they occur every other Tuesday, alternating between day and nighttime sessions. And this would get away from this jackpot that we sometimes find ourselves in, where we go 3 weeks without a meeting. Invariably, the business piles up, although I have to admit tonight's meeting was not as onerous as I expected. However, issues also pile up as well that need attending to. So I'm going to be moving that at the next meeting.
Okay, I'm just unclear as to what it is because we had gone back to the first meeting was an evening meeting, the second Tuesday of the month, and then the fourth Tuesday of the month was the day meeting. So that's why
yes,
we're meeting.
And I acknowledge that, but the wording of our current bylaw states the second and fourth Tuesday. And by virtue of that wording, we occasionally get 3-week gaps in our meeting schedule versus a scenario where we'd be meeting every other Tuesday. So that essentially plugs that problem.
Okay.
So sorry.
wouldn't that be out of sync then? Because you're not, then you're good, but if you're going to be meeting every second Tuesday, then it's going to constantly shift between the second and the fourth. It would be some months it would be the first, the third, and the fifth, or whatever.
My proposal is we take out the wording reflecting the second and the fourth and replace it with wording that speaks to the issue of meeting every other Tuesday, alternating between nighttime and daytime. And if anyone has a better idea, I'm open to it.
Okay.
So
I just don't think we should go 3 weeks without a meeting. I find it very disruptive to getting the job done.
Well, we're not debating the motion tonight, but I just, I like being able to look at my calendar for the year and say, here's the pattern. And what I'm worried about your suggestion. Well, we'll debate it next week, but
sure.
It's.
If I may just say one final thing, I think it's just as easy to remember every other Tuesday as it is the second and fourth Tuesday. I think it's 6 of one, half dozen of another. But we'll debate it next meeting.
Okay, so we will debate that on our next agenda. So there are no in-camera items, and if there is no further business that needs to be discussed, then we will sign off. That we introduce and give the necessary readings to a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Town of Mono in Session 8-2021 held on the 13th of April 2021, that it be signed by the Mayor and the Clerk and sealed and engrossed in the bylaw book. Could I have a mover? Moved by Martin and seconded by Mantelo. Any further discussion? No one's opposed, so that's carried. And that we adjourn at 9:12 p.m. And so we will, Fred Nix will move and John Creelman will second, and that is carried. Thank you very much, everyone. Stay safe.